Hey everybody, it's savagelandsnews coming in this time with an extra special episode talking about the guy who took me down in the Fable Hobby Proquest. Came in first place, absolute beast, Josh here on Iyslander. So when we get into it, right? So Josh, how long have you been playing Flesh and Blood?
Yeah, I picked up the game right when Monarch Unlimited was about to drop, um, and I have
Just
been playing ever since.
Yeah, I mean, I came in around the same time. What was it about Flesh and Blood that like really got you to stay? Because this is my first TCG, so there must be something about this game, right?
Yeah, I was never like a big TCG person before this. I dabbled. I did some like Magic Sealed draft. Never did constructed. Star Wars Destiny was a game that I really liked, but I didn't go to a lot of IRL stuff. Nothing in person really.
Okay.
But the Hyperloops and Dice that like did it, and I saw Flesh and Blood was coming up, I'm more like into it. So I was like, I got to try this game. And there's a shop. The dude just gave me 2 free decks. Me and my buddy
That's
played
sick.
them, and it was like instant. Like this game is so fun. The back and forth mechanics, it just hooked me.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, it's similar to my story, right? Went to a shop looking for a board game and basically sold Flesh and Blood, and here I am, right? So, in case you guys didn't know, Josh here got first place this last weekend on Iyslander at Fable Hobby's ProQuest Season 3. He's a member of Team Dice Commando. I believe in the Fab Team Cup, he went undefeated on Iyslander, his team getting top 16 out of all of the teams globally. And he's only been playing since Monarch. So watch out. And on top of all of that, he's an incredibly nice guy, right? One of my first times meeting him, if I had to choose somebody to lose to, this is probably the guy right here.
I I had a blast getting to play you, and thank you.
Hey, man, no, it's amazing. It was a fun experience, right? So now that you've taken down a ProQuest, right, you've got that under your belt, do you have any future goals, competitively, non competitively, with this game?
Yeah, in our heart of hearts, every single one of us wants to like take down a pro tour, but
Hell
like,
yeah.
yeah, that's one of those things. It gets like so much harder when you've got like hundreds of people and you got like Michael Hamilton and all
Oh,
these other
God,
people
yeah.
showing up. I'd love to do that. We were talking at the end of the day yesterday. I was thinking I might not go to the pro tour, but like I started looking at flight prices and I was like, okay. So
Yeah,
I think I'm looking at it now. I think my next goal is going to be try to make it to a pro tour. If I can just
let's
make it and
do
play,
it.
yeah.
Man, the first time you go to one of these really big events and you take down like a person that you recognize, right? Their name or whatever it is, it's incredible, right? One day I too would like to take down Michael Hamilton, but we'll see. Cool. So you'll be maybe at Pro Tour. I'll be there. We can jam some games. I'm looking to kind of get a bunch of people to group in the same area, so maybe we can align on that a little bit. So you played
Yeah.
Iyslander. You've been playing
Yeah.
Iyslander, it seems. Word on the street is you used to play Bravo. I don't know if that's true or not. But what about Iyslander? Or, what made you trade teams?
So when Uprising was first coming out, I remember seeing Iyslander and like I think I just have a very bad skill of like evaluating heroes when they get like premiered. Like I saw her and I went, it's like neat, whatever. It's probably not going to be that good. And Prism
Yeah.
still existed, so she's like really bad. But I
Yeah.
was interested. It's like this is kind of cool. So I started kind of putting it together, and then another YouTube channel who I'm a really big fan of is Ethnic Smoke. He
Oh,
went
yeah.
top
Super
8.
nice guy.
Yeah, so cool. He went top 8 in the calling Singapore during the when Prism was still like around, and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna play this deck because like I loved his stuff and his content was like just so good on like how to play the deck that it really helped me pump my stuff up. But like the way the deck plays is like uh I really so you mentioned Bravo. That was like my deck for my first year
Yeah.
playing. And
Yeah.
I just played it. I grinded it. I felt super good on the deck. But the problem is like even if you're like really good on that deck, I feel like things have to go right for you.
Yeah.
Your game plan is way more fair than a lot of other heroes.
Yeah.
And you can just like draw like the worst hand and be like, oh, it's 3 blues when I needed like something. And Iyslander just feels like kind of unfair, but it's like really fun. You have to think about your choices. You don't just get an auto win. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, I 100% everything you just said, totally agree. She is the only hero who in recent memory has tempted me to change again. Because it just feels like she does it. She's very hard to play. So very congrats to you on getting this far, continuing to do really well with her, right? She's very difficult to play. But man,
Yeah,
is she good at everything. So
she
good.
is. And the one thing too that I like about her is even though she's really hard to play, teaches you a lot about the game. And I think
Yeah.
that like that's one of my favorite things about a hero is when you play it and you can tell it's making you understand the game better. Like
Yeah.
she taught me how to like use the stack in a way that I didn't really get out of Kano. Like it didn't speak to me. But with her, there's like interesting like stack mechanics with does the frostbite resolve? If that resolves, it does it prevent them from doing this?
Yeah.
It's really great.
Yeah, you were the first person to ever channel Bleak expands my blood rush bellows before, so that hit me in a new way that I am still
One
salty about. And you ran one of them. Yeah, the
and
way.
I gotta tell you that I was thinking about this. I was like 90% sure that Arsenal was a blood rush because I played the cold snap and you went like I think you like paid and I was like, oh, that's a blood rush. Because like as soon as you paid for it, I was like, you care about that card. So I slammed that one bleak expanse in there. I was like, I'm ready.
It was a swing big that I wanted to blood rush you with, but yes, yeah. But you got me
Okay,
good. It
gotcha.
hurt. It hurt.
Gotcha.
So yeah. Oh, and then you did shout out to Ethic Smoke Pankaj. So any of you people out there who want to learn Iyslander, his channel is incredible. I am glad that you saw it. Yeah, he's so knowledgeable in the game itself too, right? So
He's so
cool shout out.
smart. Like the stuff
Yeah,
he puts out, and when he talks through his stuff, it's very enlightening of going like, oh, that's why he did that. Like
yeah,
he's genuinely made me a better player through his
yeah.
videos.
He'll post his deck list, explain every single one of his decisions, and then win with it, right? I love people like that, right? It's good.
So cool.
Um, okay, so let's go over your Proquest event, right? So you went in there, Iyslander in hand or in backpack, whatever. What were your matchups for the day? Going
Sure.
before top eight. So what did you hit? How did you do in those first 6 games, I believe?
Yeah. Let me pull up my list for the event here because I want to get all my opponents' names right.
Yeah, no worries. And just so you guys know, we had a 64-person event, I believe. Only 3 players ended up not showing. So I think it was a 61-player event. So there was 6 rounds and then the cut to top 8. So pretty stacked ProQuest. So
It
yeah, you
was
ready?
nuts. Yes.
Sick.
Cool. Round one, I played into Daniel Vore, who was on Dory, but they were
Okay.
on the Quicksilver Dagger, Centauri Saber, and like I have a friend, Mark, where I play normally, who has been on that a little bit. So I was like, oh, I know what's going on here a little bit. I've seen this spicy deck,
The
and
spice, yeah.
he's a really nice guy, and it was a lot of fun getting to play him. I'm going to school right now to be a teacher, and they
Oh,
are a teacher, and we had a really great talk about the job, what it's like, and they were just full of great advice. So just awesome.
that's awesome.
To take that one down, I traditionally don't like Dory a ton, but I think that version is a little easier for me to interact with.
Yeah.
Round two, I played into Jimmy Yin, who was on Iyslander as well.
Okay.
They were on a modified list, more modified than mine is. Like I've made a few tweaks. They've made quite a few tweaks to their list. It was a really tight game, and it came down to first of all, they had like 3 sigils, and they got every single one off. A sigil, a solace. So they gained 9 life in the
Yeah.
game. Nuts. They had the sigil of permafrost, so they were going for that. Get you with a million frostbites, kill you on the frost hex after the
Okay.
D-react thing.
Mm-hmm.
I got them though on the turn where they went off. The order of events I can't exactly remember, but I had chill triggers happen. They respond to the chill triggers by breaking their storm striders. I respond to them breaking their storm striders by popping an amulet of ice because they'd forgotten about the amulet
Oh,
and it
clever.
completely threw their math off.
That's sick.
I felt super good about that. Like Jimmy was an excellent player, but just that turn, like I was waiting for it. I was watching that amulet, hoping he was going for it because after that, they don't have striders and it was I had it from there, but it was a really great game. The Mirror is probably the most exhausting Iyslander game.
Oh, dude, the Mirror is one of the only reasons I haven't played her yet, because I haven't spent the time to just drill the mirror into the floor, right? Because that seems like really
You have to
intricate.
stack your triggers so well.
Yeah. Okay.
It's
Well, so you took down the mirror. That's a
Yep.
skill in itself.
Yeah, it's round number 3 into Billy Horn, another person, another Dice Commando person.
Okay.
They were on Viscerai. Billy's an excellent player, and he said to me that he was the person I was the person he was trying to dodge, because he knows Viscerai is like his worst matchup right now is probably Iyslander.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
I just got like a ton of value out of that game. I had my Illuvian going off. I was hitting them with they've got to block the physical damage. They've got to block the arcane damage.
Yeah.
He went for a Mordred Tide turn where he popped his Quill Hand, and I was able to just completely stop him with something from Arsenal. And it was
Yeah,
rough.
I'm
I think it
really
might have
happy
been
you took him
Jam.
down for me, because I am not a fan of Viscerai. So thank you for that one. You just out Viscerai, right? Having to hit with arcane and physical damage. It's like my least
It's
favorite thing in the whole world.
I mean, maybe Iyslander is just the real Rune Blade all along.
Uh, yeah, you said it first. It kind of feels like it, right? You're just like a better Viscerai. Yeah.
Round 4, I played into Jacob Powell, who was
Okay.
playing Bolton. And
Yeah.
when I heard Bolton, and I thought Bolton, that's fine, but I heard 4-0 and I went, at this point 3-0, I went, maybe I should be a little worried about that.
Jacob's a beast.
Normally, I don't mind Bolton normally, because like hypothermia they just can't play around it.
Yeah.
That's it. The only thing they have going for them now is Spirit of Irina. So if they have that, they can kind of do it.
Yeah.
But like he didn't find it. It was a really tight game, honestly, like tighter than I thought it would be. But he kind of telegraphed his position on it being a Lumina turn when he popped a Courage and he popped a Gallantry Gold and then went for a V. And I had a Blizzard in hand, and I waited till they beaconed, got a Lumina, and I said, no, I'm not going to Blizzard yet. You have 2 cards. I don't know what one of them is, or his 3 cards, something like that. And they did it again, got the second Lumina. And I think at that point I Blizzarded them. But they did get to go for swing. They swung 3 times, but I was able to completely block them out.
Okay.
And then from there, they just didn't have any answers. He had an interesting choice of playing Arcanite Skullcap as their Arcane Barrier.
Interesting.
Normally I would feel a little iffy about, but it worked out pretty well for them. They were at lower life a lot of the time. So they were able to utilize it pretty well.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So like I was actually kind of surprised by it, but it ended up saving them a bit of life. It was, I think, a cool play.
He somehow always finds the combo so fast. He's incredible, right? He's a true diehard Bolton player, and he's one of the only Boltons I play who consistently like just surprises me every game. It's crazy. He's really good at it.
Bolton's one of those decks where it's like people are like, "Oh, it's a meme," but then you play a good Bolton player, and you're like, "I was promised a free win. What's happening?"
I know. Yeah. I don't like seeing him at all, and I'm not really teched for it ever. So it's like I just kind of have to hope.
It's pretty good in the Dash and Fi. Like they just play attack actions.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's pretty fast if you do it right. So
right. I was able to take that one down. We go to round 5. This is my one loss was to Taylor Ballard, who was on Dash. He came up from the Corvallis crew.
Team Foundry.
Super nice.
My team.
Yeah, Team Foundry.
Yeah.
We played at the Battle Hardened. We've played before. He was on Bravo before too, I remember. We both kind of had a conversation of like, yeah, not anymore about Bravo, but he was able to get me. He was playing Dash. And normally, like, Dash is what some Icelanders would say is like a hard matchup. And I think that like when some people misclassify hard matchups for our Iyslander, like it's when I say it's a hard matchup, like it's not unwinnable. Like I think some people just hear hard matchup and kind of think that like, oh, Dash means you shouldn't play Iyslander. Like you can win that matchup perfectly well. It just depends on like if you can get things to line up right and if they don't see like all their power cards in the right order. We had a really tight game, and it came down to at the end of the game, he had an extra Teklo Pounder that he was able to get out to get extra value, putting me on a clock. and I was not able to Storm Striders for lethal. I'd arsenaled a red Aether Ice Vein. They were at 8, and they had 2 cards left in hand, so no matter what I did, they'd have resources to at least stop 1.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
But it was
Dash
a
is.
really
Yeah, I mean Taylor's really good. Team Foundry, happy that he was able to make it the top 8. But yeah, I mean Dash is a notoriously hard matchup. So, and like you said, hard is. I don't think Iyslander has an auto loss right now. I don't think so. Um, so yeah, it's just you just got to try a little harder, right, to win. And sometimes you know if the TCG luck does what it does, you lose no matter what. So you know. Okay, so one
right.
loss, not bad.
Yep.
Still
Yeah.
going strong. And what was your final game?
So my final game was into Taylor Stir, another Taylor who was also on Dash. So going into this round, I was a little bit nervous. I just lost to a Dash, and it's, you know, at this point, like we're pretty sure like that there's not going to be a lot of 4-2s that make it. So I really don't want to be on the cusp if I can avoid it. So I got to win this one. And it was a really tight game. Taylor played it really well. My round 5 Taylor Ballard was playing. He started with a Teclo Pounder. And then this Taylor started with an induction chamber instead, but found the Teclo Pounder turn 1.
Oof.
But that game, I went first, and I started with a Channel Lake Frigid, which I kept on the board for 2 turns and immediately found the next one. So I just kept them on a clock or kept them locked down with those channels for a long time. They were doing a really good job stopping as much arcane as they could. They found a blue every turn that I was trying to go for something. But I was just able to get in there and take it down. It was a really tight game, and they really, really understand their deck. Everybody I played was like just incredible pilot. So, but like it was a really good game. I won that one, and then I knew locked for top 8, so I got to just take a breather and wait till we started.
Yeah.
Then going into top 8, my first was into Jacob Willard, who was on Rhinar. Super nice guy.
Yeah, he's cool.
I know he used to play Briar, and his play was also like really solid, but I was just able to, you know, like I'm sure we'll talk about this stuff in matchups as we go on, but like I people say like Rhinar's a bad matchup for Iyslander, and like I kind of disagree. I think at worst it might be like favored Rhinar 55-45, and that's only if Rhinar like gets to punish you with like they go first. If they go first, maybe it's like 60-40, right? Because you find a barraging or something. I just take damage.
Yeah.
But like if you go first, it gets worse for me. If you find blood rushes and I can't stop you, it gets worse for me. It's just about if you find your power cards. But like I also play really efficiently, and if things go right for me, it's also hard for Rhinar to effectively do anything. Because if I like threaten arcane, you've probably got a blue, and you need it.
Yeah. Yeah, 100% there. It's a thing. It's one of those weird matchups where like it goes both ways because like I've beaten incredible Iyslander players because I drew well and I just annihilated their health pool in like the first 4 turns, and then you know they're forced to block for the rest of the game. And then there's like every other Iyslander game where I'm punished and I can't afford it, and everything's going the Icelander's way, and it feels like I'm in a hole that I can never get out of. You know, it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a fun game. It's one of those ones where I think one thing people overestimate how bad the matchup is because, you can't make Rhinar discard or pay 2 on their turn at instant speed or else they'll intimidate you. It's like, well, yeah, just don't do that then.
Yeah, just don't do it. Yeah. Don't hurt yourself, right?
Right. Then moving to top 4, I played my last Swiss opponent again, Taylor Stoll. And this game was like, it was nuts. He was an excellent Dash player, like so good. And I was scared. I'm playing the game, trying to chip him down and throw attacks. And I'm noticing he is just blocking me. He is blocking my arcane. He is blocking my physical. He is trying to he's trying to stall this out. So I'm worried. I had been not prioritizing Frost Hexes. I'd blocked with 2 Ice Eternals early. So I'm like, I've got one of those in the deck. I've got my Ice Eternals, but only one of them's going to be coming up soon. So as soon as I found it, I made sure I played it. I got an Insidious Chill trigger out. An Insidious Chill out. And like, I was like, okay, I got to play for this now too. And he was just stopping as much as he could. I got him to 9 life. And this was actually one of my favorite moments of the tournament was the way I won this game was I had a blue Emeritus in Arsenal,
Okay.
4 Arcane there. I've got the Waning Moon, so that's 3. And in hand, I have Tunic up. And then in hand, I have 4 blues. One of them's Ice Eternal.
Hmm.
And so I have to sit there and do the math because he pitches a card to play a card, leaving 1 floating, and I don't think anything in Arsenal. They're at 9 life, so I have to make sure, like, is there anything they can do? Because I can pop Striders. That's what I ended up doing. I had to think about it, but I ended up popping Striders, Ice Eternal, fusing, paying 4 total, so making 2 Frostbites. They take 2. Well, they take 1 of the 2.
Yeah.
They might have been at 11. They take 1 of the 2, which takes them to... It doesn't matter. And then I come in for 4. Then I come in for 3, and then the 2 Frostbites do 2 more, getting the game. But it was just a really... I've never Striders an Ice Eternal for that much like impact before. And that was like really just a cool...
I mean, like, yeah, that's a lot of damage to sneak out at the end there, right? Like, especially during a turtle deck where you weren't really prepared to be turtling. So that's pretty good.
Mhm.
I mean, the adaptability is really what it takes to be good at this game, right? Like, you can't always have the same action plan. And sometimes you realize halfway through the game you made a mistake or you weren't playing the way your opponent didn't play the way you're used to. You got to adapt,
Mhm.
right? So
Right.
that's really good. Yeah. And then your final game.
Yeah, my final game. Is this, let me see, who's this? It's Nathan Dolman, I think?
Yeah, some guy. Yeah, average breed player.
No, it was a great game. There were some things that happened, like you got some awkward red in there. And then Blood Return was like just bad.
Oh, you're cutting out a little bit there, buddy. Hold on 1 second. Did I lose you again?
I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear. Oh, you're caught up again. Okay, go ahead. I'll cut that out a
Good.
little bit.
All right. Our game was great. I really enjoyed it. I know there were some, like things that like didn't work out on your end. Like you had like some red clumps. The blood rush turn was like really awkward. There were some things that just really went wrong. Like I had Channel the Bleak, and you banished you had the Beast Within, which just like hit you for 3 damage, and it banished like a blood rush and an Oasis as well.
Yeah, it banished all of my good cards. Yeah, it's okay.
Sucked. I was nervous at the end that you had another Oasis. So because I didn't see it was Oasis and I didn't think to check the card was. I was like, oh, okay, it wasn't 6. So I had the Aether Ice Fiend to go for a Strider's play, but I was being cagey. So I was like, I'll do one on my turn instead. So then you have less cards. And I just had to finally go for it. And you had the 2 red, so I was able to get there. But it was like, that's the one part I hate is like you have to sit there and wonder, like, okay, if you have this, do I still have lethal?
Yeah. Yeah, it's my favorite. Number one way to win against a wizard is have a got you at their kill turn and then your damage goes through and you win, right? Very close game, but yeah, you play differently than most Icelanders too. I noticed in that game, right? Like you noticed that I was struggling to find tempo, and so you kept attacking me instead of pocketing it in Arsenal, which normally normally that's a really good sign for me. But you just didn't let off the gas when I was struggling. So it was really good. Because normally when an Icelander doesn't have a card in their arsenal, I kill them. Like I just do 25 damage, 30 damage, whatever I can do in 2 turns, and then. But you saw that I was struggling. You saw that things weren't going right, and you just never let off the gas pedal, and it was rough, right? And I think you said it perfectly. We were neck and neck the entire 2020, 10, 10, 4, 4 at some point or something like that. But exactly what you said, if you're tied to somebody, you feel like you're winning. And
100%.
I had you at 4 health, and I knew the game was over, right? I knew it was over. The fact that we were both at 20 life in the mid game, I knew it was over. So yeah, you played excellently.
Thank you. That's something to read how the card Iceland does. Oh, I can play a blue card from my arsenal. I better have an arsenal every time.
Yeah.
You don't always have to have an arsenal too. Like that's one thing. Like you have to make those reads. And like if you watch some of like Hamilton's games, he does the same thing. Like if I can just go E-Strike Wounded Bull for like 13 total damage, I don't need the arsenal.
Yeah, it was terrible. I hated every part of it. So okay. So so you won the event. Only 1 loss in the entire thing. Amazing, right? You kind of highlighted one of your favorite games was it was in the finals against the Dash player, so that's amazing. But how do you feel Iyslander is positioned right now, and then maybe a little bit looking forward? Right, we don't know anything about the next set, but we know that it's assassins and rangers, right?
Mhm.
And probably some ninja support, which I'm personally terrified about. But how do you feel with Iyslander right now and looking a little bit forward?
Um, you know, right now I really like the deck, and I think the thing is like I've had this conversation with people that I think the deck rewards uh, loyalty, and it
Mm,
it has it has a high skill floor, but if you've played it a long time, it's very consistent.
yes.
Um, I think that like you said it earlier, like the bad matchups aren't even like that bad. Like it's if you
Yeah.
know what you're doing, you can beat like those hard matchups. Like Dromai's a bad matchup, but I haven't lost a Dromai game in a while.
Yeah.
And when I have, it's because they get the nuts and it's like here's double Themai, and you're
Yeah.
like, okay, well,
All
game's
right.
over.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Luckily, there's a lot of things keeping Dromai down right now. And then, like you said, Michael Hamilton's list and your adapted list lean pretty heavy in or in attack actions and
Yep,
sixes. So it's like even your bad matchup has gotten much better over time, right? Like,
right.
yeah. So okay, cool. So you're feeling strong about the future. You're feeling strong about this current season. Let's go ahead and jump into your list, and we'll highlight, the decisions you've made, some of your matchups. We'll take it from there. Okay, so he's got his list on the screen. Um, Let us know any of the cards. I know you've made some changes to this list. I saw them personally to great effect, actually. But highlight any cards that you have added, anything that overperformed during this ProQuest season, and any cards that you might change in the future or that just didn't really work out the way that you think they did.
Yeah. So overall, the list is essentially Michael Hamilton's list,
Mhm.
but I have added one channel to Bleak Expanse.
Yep.
I think it is a bit of a silver bullet, and I'm not normally a fan of silver bullet cards, but what this does is really good into a bunch of the decks that are popular right now.
Mm.
So, like you were on Rhinar, this is
Yeah.
like great into Rhinar.
Yep.
Uh, there was some rumblings about Lexi, and if Lexi
Mm.
goes off with like an Art of War or a Three of a Kind, this is nice to have. Fai
Oh.
also plays Art of War, and you can respond. So, like, this is something you learn from like, or I learned from like Ethnic Smoke. His video talking about how you can respond to a belittle. They'll play belittle, reveal a card, because that's part of the cost. Then you respond with a channel to Bleak Expanse to stop them from searching before they go to the card effect. So you can stop a belittle from getting their Minnowism with this
Oh.
card, which is nice.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and it stops Art of War. So like, oh, and also Briar's been playing like Cash Out, or sorry, Cash In,
Yep.
Cash Out, Cash Out,
Yep.
and I didn't want to deal with that because I was talking with Jesse, your team member, and he was like, no, yeah, Cash Out says instead of paying resources, you can like pay with a gold. So like
Hmm.
if I give them a Frostbite, they just go neat. Cash Out paying with a gold, breaking the Frostbite, didn't have to pay for it anyways. Channel the Bleak Expanse is a nice little way to like actually interact with something like that. So
Huh. Those are actually really
yeah.
interesting decision making trees. And like three of a kind, I would guess, right? Just stops three of a kind right in his
Oh
tracks.
yeah, Three of a Kind is like I don't like to play into Lexi a ton
No.
because it is a harder matchup that you can win, but it's hard. And, like kind is how they win it. So if you could stop that,
Interesting. Okay, yeah. I mean, that makes sense to me. A lot of sense. The meta, you targeted basically every popular hero with that decision. So cool. Um,
the other thing that I've put in here is two Winter's Bites. That card's come out of a lot of decks,
mm,
and I think the meta has gotten greedier, even though Iyslander is still popular. And this
yeah.
card is really good into greedy decks, even if they're not being greedy. Like a Belittle Fi isn't being greedy, but when it's the same interaction. Say Fi goes, pitch a red to pay for a Belittle. I'm going to show you this other card. Now I'm going to go search for my Minnowism. Well, before they get it, you can Winter's Bite them and say, no, you're down one more card, and you make that turn way worse for them.
Yeah, honestly, I hate that
Um,
card.
it's really good into everything. And the thing
Yeah.
about it is, like, it's a card with Go Again. So, like, Coronet Peak is good, but without Go Again, it's like that thing of, like, oh, you can go Scar for a Scar. into Coronet Peak. Well, what if you went Coronet Peak into Wounded Bull? Like, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I
You
hate that
know,
card. I also hate when it
it's
shows up twice
really,
in one turn sometimes, and you pitch a red, and then they're like, haha, I have two of them. And then you have to pay twice.
right.
Yeah,
That's so good.
yeah, hate
I
that card.
think it's really good into just about a lot of things. Like, I don't like it in some matchups where it's like, oh, like Dash has a lot of blues, so it's
Yeah.
like, I'm not sure the Fai wants that blue real bad. Pretty much most of the decks, like I even kind of like it into Oldhim because like normally I wouldn't. Like a Guardian can use like their blues to great effect, but like a lot of the time they're trying to play Macho Grandes,
Yeah.
Thunderquakes, really big attacks, and they need all their resources. So if I go Winter's Bite into Wounded Bull, not only do they not get to block me as efficiently, they might not even get to swing the hammer back.
Yeah. And it turns off basically all of their go again cards. They can't really follow up with a Nothos as easily. They can't follow up with a Pummel a lot of the time because they perfect pitched, right? And you're giving them a Frostbite, right? Ugh, gross.
Yeah, and okay, so this is an interesting one. I like this on my turn most of the time more, unless it's an aggro deck. Well, okay, and that's unfair because there's a lot of aggro decks, but I like this on my turn just because it's that thing of like, I strip you before you even get there, and hopefully I have something else to sneak in my arsenal, and then my arcane might be like more effective.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, gross. Yeah, I don't like that card. I judge most of Icelander's cards by how much I hate to see them. So, I can tell you right now that I don't like that card at all. I hate when I see it. So, yeah, good choice.
Thank you. And it costs 0. It's so nice to have a card that you can say like, all I have to do is play it. I don't have to pitch.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a theme
Um,
going on of very valuable cards, just very valuable.
right. Something else that's like it's something I'm doing that's not by like choice of like, oh, this is like some big brain thing. Is it's just like I only have 2 Emerituses in the list, and it's because I own 2 Emerituses. I've somehow never opened a third, and I didn't bother buying a third. And while this is all based purely on my experiences and not like oh, this is 100% the case, like having
Mm,
2 felt fine. I would like to have a third. If I had a third, I would add it over something else.
okay.
But this is a card that wins you the game most of the time. And like, if you listen to Michael Hamilton talk on his podcast about it, he usually wants to arsenal this and it's going to win him the game. I think that that's right. And like, I'm not trying to say like, oh, except for this, because like that's the guy who knows the deck. He's like, that this is his deck. But
Mm,
like the thing about this is nice too is if you can strip a lot of cards from somebody, like if you're able to go like Scar for Scar, Wounded Bull, and stick this in Arsenal, they have no cards. 7 damage is pretty good.
yes.
Um,
Yes, it
yeah,
is. And just a random 7
yeah.
on their turn. Yeah, not bad.
The other thing that I've done different than Michael Hamilton is I have 3 hypothermias and 2 blizzards.
Okay.
Um, there's not like a big. I just don't like that Blizzard doesn't turn on a lot of your game plan as Iyslander. It does have a powerful effect. You're
Mm,
essentially taxing the opponent 3 to get go again because it makes a frostbite,
mm,
but it doesn't turn on your waning moon and it doesn't block. So,
okay.
there's a lot of games that you really want to have blocking cards. Like against Reinar, you have go again. But the problem is like if this doesn't block and or if you intimidate it away, like I mean, like I have to make the choice to do it before you intimidate. It's just kind of like it's fine, but it's better into like a Phi or a Briar, but it
Yeah.
just it's conditional, right? If they had the extra card, like yeah, their turn's worse, but like I just want it to work. So like
Yeah.
I play them still. They're a very powerful card, but having 3 hypothermias, maybe not the best call, but it's really good into Dash. Like it just stops Dash. There's no card in Dash that gets go again. The only thing they can get around it with is maximum was the high octane
Achilles and
or popping their boots.
yeah.
Yeah. And if they pop the boots, that's like a victory, honestly. Like
I mean,
especially if it's early in the game.
yeah, I can tell you right now that I hate hypothermia and I think it should not be in the game. I don't think it should
I think
exist. So I think you made the
I
right
think it's
call.
yeah. If Iyslander didn't play the way if she didn't exist, this card would be fine.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, because Iyslander exists, like, yeah, this card is there's a reason they banned it in Blitz. I think it's fine in CC, and I'm gonna be honest, as an Iyslander player, it's like out of my cards that I really want to arsenal, this is probably like priority 2.
Okay.
Unless it's into a matchup that it matters. Like in Defy, I don't really like this card because it hits their sword and it hits Blaze Headlong, and like there's not a ton more it really hits.
Yeah.
It's really good into Briar, but Briar's not really good right now.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think it's
Rhinar
my
is really
yeah, it's the Rhinar background, right? The fact that you can turn off my Blood Rush Bellows without me
right.
having any interaction. Like Blizzard to me, it's like, okay, I can pay the blue, right? Like, sure, I'll pay for it. I'm normally like mentally prepared for Frostbites and payment, but oh man, when that card comes out, it makes me just want to like flip the table. It's so good. It is such a good card.
It's frustrating. Yeah, because you
Yeah.
can't do anything most of
Yeah,
the
you
time.
just
It's
watch.
just it's over. Okay, I guess I don't get to do anything else. And
Yeah. It's a good
yeah,
card. I mean, I think you made the right
it's
choice, but it's good, right? Well, like you can't. It, it makes sense. It's good. Why not play that card? That card's incredible in the right circumstances, like you said. I guess the Blizzard thing is like arguable both ways. I could see it.
yeah.
The right, yeah, they're both
I
really
don't
good for
think like
different reasons.
right. If you did the switch and had it the other way, I think you'd be fine. Because
Yeah,
like hypothermia is one of those cards where something interesting about it is that like if you solve them out and hypothermia them, and you don't have anything you're really able to like threaten them with, like it stops them, but you still need to have something high value to do to make them not just have a good turn the next turn. So it's one of
yeah,
those things where it's like it's great if you stop them, but you have to still present afterwards.
makes sense.
But
Okay. I mean, yeah, it makes sense. I mean, the list is rock solid, right? Michael Hamilton did an amazing job. I don't think anybody in the world is going to argue with that. And then, each one of the changes you stated are very concise. It makes a lot of sense to me. The the rationale into why you made them, the meta that you are walking into. So I mean, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Should we dive into matchups, or were there any cards that just didn't perform for you at all? That maybe you would change, or are you pretty happy with it?
um, I think you could argue about taking Bleak Expanse out. There's things about it that the worst part about it is that it blocks two. The other bad part is it stops you from fusing, and it's just like that could be bad in its own way. Like
Hmm.
it's really good if you are stopping an opponent's power turns, but I'm only running one, so it has to line up. And
Yeah.
if it doesn't line up, then it's just an ice card that blocks two.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I can see that. But when it lines up, man, does it
It's really
really hurt. Let me tell you, it hurts really bad, everybody. Um, okay, so should we dive into matchups then? Do you want to start with we can start with the ice heroes, maybe the big ice heroes, who right now are dominating every major event that's going on right now. So outside of ProQuest
it's winter.
season, it's winter. It is winter has come and it is rough. So why don't we start with the mirror? Because that's probably the most complex one. I'd
Yeah.
guess.
Yes.
Okay, so starting with Iyslander, take it away.
Great. This should be the right amount. It's kind of a little hard not seeing the count on there, but we take out Tunic, Cornet Peak, and the Ironhide gloves to play AB5 because this is one of those matchups where that's good.
Hmm.
We don't play Scar for a Scar because this is one of those matches where we both start at 36 and you have no guarantee really of who's going to be at one life, lower or higher, and it swings really weirdly.
Okay.
Um, the attacks are good, but your main goal really most of the time, like you're going to pressure them and try to attack, but your main goal, you should be trying to stop your frost hexes and your insidious chills, and that's important. And you don't feel like you have to get all of them. I think the most impactful cards in the matchup are going to be Insidious Chill or Amulet of Ice because if you start stripping cards out of the other Icelander's hand, they have to either do something about it, like I'm going to play my cards now. This means that I'll be taking more damage, or they just have to pay the taxes and try to like stop the bleeding as much as they can. And there's a bit of like in between of like how do I do both of those? The attacks are still really good. Other from that, I mean, like Wounded Bull for 7 or Find All's Fighting Spirit for 7, not gaining a life, aren't exactly what you want, but they're still fine. You're not losing as much as you are with Scar for a Scar not having go again.
Okay.
Amulet of Ice should be a high priority too, because like you can just sit on those. And like I was talking about my game with Jimmy, like the triggering really, stacking of triggers really matters in this game. Um, the things you should be looking for are your Alluvian Constellus. So
Hmm.
don't give your opponent free Alluvian Constellus charges if you can avoid it. Like you're going to have to attack them, but make sure it's for good value when you do. You want to be charging up yours. So a common play I've been doing is my first turn against Jimmy, I played Channel Lake Frigid and then Waning Mooned myself, paying for the Arcane, kicking up my Alluvian, arsenaling a card. No, I don't even think I got to arsenal a card. I might not have. Maybe I did. I don't remember. Either way, I ticked up. You can you can Waning Moon yourself, pay for the Arcane Barrier, and then tick up your Alluvian. You want to have those triggers because when your opponent tries to kill you, the most important card in the matchup for you to win, or one of them, is Alluvian Constellus. The ability is instant, not once per turn instant, so you can activate that, take 2 charges off, activate it again, take the other 2 charges off, and reduce your Waning Moon by 6 resources. So if they come in for a Ice Eternal, and you can keep like 2 floating, and you have that go up, you can pay. It costs 6 less. So I mean, if you have 6 Frostbites and you have 2 floating, it costs 6 less. You could pay through that and still Waning Moon them to break the Frostbites and not take Ice Eternal damage off the Frost hexes at the end of the turn.
That's incredible. I did that all the time on Viscerai when I was playing in the Ice Heroes, right? You'd stack up enough rune chance and then basically do a wombo turn with a cost reduction card. Like,
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't even know you could do that with Iyslander. That is insane. That's cool. That's sick.
Yeah, and you really have to pay attention to that. There's a mirror I played at an armory a couple of weeks ago. It was at the Discs and Dice one. Um, and I played against a really good Iyslander player, but we had a sequence of events where they had 2 Insidious triggers. I responded with an Amulet of Ice trigger. It was my turn, and I'd played a Yellow Ice Vein. They responded with a Ice Eternal. So they had the 2 chill triggers. I respond with my Amulet of Ice. They respond with Waning Moon. I respond by taking 2 charges off Alluvian. Then when they come in for the Waning Moon, I pay to tick up my Alluvian so I can take off another 2 counters. So like you should be considering how you can get the best value out of that card, because it will save you if they go for the kill turn and you can use it.
That's crazy. Yeah, I had no idea. That's incredible. I've been
Yeah.
talking with other Rhinar players about trying to find a cost reduction card to deal with Lexi, right? I don't think we have access to one right now, but that was like one of my favorite things to do on Viscerai was just like, oh, that's nice 7 frostbites you gave me. Let me just get rid of them all right now for free. Like that's so cool. That's so cool. All right, that's interesting. I've heard, tell me how wrong I am. I'm not an Iyslander player. I've heard it's bad to have 1 frost hex, but good to have 2. And then I've also heard like not playing, arcane cards to the best of your ability until you're ready to go is like another strategy.
Yeah. Nope. That's generally right. You'll have to read the situation to see what the best value is. But when they have 1 frost hex, why that's bad is because at the end of the turn they can pay 1 to tick up their Alluvian. So if they have a resource floating and they just get that 1 arcane damage, you're giving them a free Alluvian every turn and they're not taking any damage. So it's like
Yeah.
you're almost damaging yourself, like
Yeah.
by doing it. But you need to get your frost hexes out. So you shouldn't not play them. It's just that you should be careful about what you're doing when you do. You don't want to give them free value if you can help it. The
Okay.
arcane spells are not good into the mirror because they have AB5. I mean, they're fine, right? Because you're gonna hopefully win off an arcane spell at the end. But like, if you have Insidious Chill, Aether, Ice Vein, Red's really good. But if you don't, it's 5 arcane that they can stop with 2 blues and take up their Alluvian.
Yep.
Um, on If you're playing on their turn and you try to play a blue arcane spell at them, the max you're going to get is 7 off an Emeritus Scolding, and like they can stop all of that, and then you're just losing one of your like win cards.
It's crazy.
So yeah, one thing, depending on how you see them, you might try pitch stacking red ice veins. I've done that a bit in some matches so that you can see them later. It really depends, though. Like, if your opponent sees things earlier than you, like chills, and then they start punishing you, you might just lose the game. But like, if you can get a good setup and you can see those later, it's something you can do. Channel Lake Frigid is like your best friend of this matchup because if Iyslander is like the number one ice hero, and she's the one who hates ice effects the most.
Yeah, it's weird.
And then you could bring in Channel the Bleak Expanse. The problem is it's like a group hug. It hurts both of you. You know, it's like it can be good, but it's like
That makes sense.
probably not. Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, it's like a group hug. It's like nobody wins here. Cool. I mean, yeah, that match, I think a lot of people say that getting good at the Iyslander mirror is kind of like the testament to being a good Iyslander player, because you can beat a lot of other decks with Iyslander easier than you'll be able to beat another Iyslander player, especially one who understands these intricacies. You know, I had no idea about that. Half the things you just said are new to me. So it makes a lot of sense, you know. That's sick. So let's knock out the or any other comments. Yeah, go ahead.
One last thing that I want to say: don't be afraid to say pass. You got 2 cards in hand, and there's like, I could maybe play my Wounded Bull and have no cards, or I have 3 cards. One of them's Wounded Bull, and I could arsenal this other blue after I play it. Look at your life totals. If you're at 12, if you're at like 15, you know, read the room, read what they're like signaling. That's okay to play Wounded Bull sometimes there, but like at 15, if you have 2 Frost Hexes, they can kill you. So like, be okay saying pass. You still have your action point. If they do something and it's like marginal, it's not that big, punish them. But like, if they don't, you know, and you just get the arsenal, sweet, move on.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, same thing you got to do into Wizard sometimes. It's like, I pass because I know if I do something right now, I die. You know, like, yeah, okay, yeah, really, really interesting stuff there. But yeah, let's knock the ice heroes out of the way. I think Oldhim's another one of those. He's crushing it globally at major events, right? I think it's another unique kind of battle as an Iyslander player, since it's a very blue heavy deck. Take it away.
Right on. So because this is Michael Hamilton's list, I am running the same equipment. I have the Crown of Providence in. The Cornet Peak feels not great into Oldhim. Crown of Seeds is a really good piece of equipment. They essentially get to pay for the crown and the coronet, and they keep a 4-card hand so they can present Thunderquake, Macho Grande, or Glacial Footsteps off that.
Yep.
Which is really rough. So you would rather just have the 2 block, and it is kind of nice to fix your arsenal sometimes. Or hand, whatever it is. Sometimes you get too many reds, and it's like, this doesn't work.
Yeah.
You bring in the defense reactions here because you kind of need them a little bit.
Okay.
Brain Freeze blocks 3, so that's the main purpose there, is that it is a nice block 3, but you're not really going to hit anything in Oldhim.
Yeah, okay.
And this might not be perfect numbers again. Like, if I was sitting down, I'd be able to count it out a little better. Like I said, I kind of like Winter's Bite here a little bit, just because Oldhims are more aggressive. If you can Winter's Bite into an attack, like, they have to do something about it, and you're basically stopping a big attack off of that.
Okay.
You have energy potions and frost hexes and ice eternals here, and you will win off those. But to be honest, you should just try to play out your big attacks, and you should just try to play out big value. And like, you can't bank on ice eternal frost hex combo anymore.
Okay.
Which is unfortunate, but it's like kind of gone down, especially in a Bullander list. Like, it's just not as good, you know. Like, Dylan, who's another Iyslander who they had a really good day, but they weren't able to make the top 8.
Yeah.
They were playing a more arcane heavy list.
Yeah.
Frost Hex is great into arcane heavy lists, but here you've got 3 things that make the Frost Hex kill them, which is your 3 copies of Ice Eternal. So it's a very risky play.
Yeah. I mean, you're kind of just
So
you're out guarding them with the damage you deal on the average turn while you're setting up for the end game, I guess, right?
right. And as they've gotten more aggressive, that's gotten a little easier because they're trying to like hit you. You come in with something, they'll ice react you. So you have to be a little careful about like the ice react. Like
Hmm.
I would still like if my play was like I have 3 cards, pitch to play Wounded Bull, have one in hand, hope to arsenal it. I wouldn't change that play. I wouldn't like do something else, but they can just ice react you. And if they do, it stinks, but like their turn's probably not going to be more than just hammer at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes
So
sense. Would you
you're
say
just
it's
trying
like
to get
a
in.
Oh, no worries. Would you say it's like a like favored matchup for Iyslander?
I don't really know.
Okay.
When the deck started, people said that Guardian had a really bad matchup into it.
Mhm.
And then it got really hard as like Oldhim started figuring it out. And they've gone through like Oldhim's changed so much in the last few months that
Mhm.
it's kind of hard to tell. And there's a lot of like difference in Oldhim players. Like if I sat down from Natan, I would tell you I'm probably not favored because Natan's so good at Oldhim.
Yeah, it's
Um,
annoying.
but like, if I sat down from just an Oldhim, I'd say yeah, it's like a 50-50. It really depends on who sees their power cards and who sees like if I go like like Scar for a Scar. Sorry, I take Scar for a Scar out if I know they're on Stalagmite.
Yeah, okay.
If I know they're not going to play Stalagmite, I'll play it. But if they play Stalagmite, it's really bad. So you're not
Yeah.
going for that. So it's just your attacks are coming in for usually just like E strike for 7 or E strike for 5, draw a card. If it's 5, draw a card, they'll probably ice react you, but that gets a card out of their hand. So it's kind of equivalent. It goes back in the deck, but
Yep.
you just have to go for it. Find your good blocks, but the thing about Iyslander is like you do the math. Is it worth more in your hand or is it worth more blocking? And sometimes that doesn't just mean right now in the moment. It means like what does this represent to the overall game? Brothers in Arms is very good for blocking here.
Okay.
I mean, it's
Yeah, that
good for
makes
blocking.
sense.
Yeah. Um, Try to get your hexes out. If it's not working, like and they're going aggressive, you're just gonna have to try to keep going with them. You have to like pace your play based on how they play. So if they're aggressive, you're aggressive. If they're defensive and slow, you're frost hexing them.
Yep. Yeah, I mean it plays weirdly similar to Reinhardt, right? Like you have to watch the Guardian player and see like what's going on. Are they beating you up? Then you have to play a game that you know isn't going to last very long, and you have to kill them before they kill you. And if they're going really slow, you need to set up a way to win, right? Because there's two very distinctive Oldhim decks out there, and they both play very differently, and you just you got to see what's going on.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to cover against Oldhim?
Yeah. If you know, like, you're not always going to know. If you know they're more, some Oldims are more aggressive in the way that they play a lot of go again. If they do, bring your hypothermias in. If
Oh
you
yeah,
don't know, like, I've got one in the list right now. If you don't know, one's probably fine. If you can line it up with a rouse, that'll save you, 4 to 6 damage,
yeah.
which is good. But if you don't know, don't like just slam them in. Like that card can be not great.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I can see that. Sometimes scouting your
Channeling Frigid's
competition.
not the best.
Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, it's the lag.
I know it's okay. We'll figure it out.
I was gonna say, Channel Lake Frigid's kind of at its worst in this matchup. So it's one of those things where, like, if you have to play it, sure, but it's not like something you want to put in Arsenal most of the time. It's a good pitch card, it's a good block card, but it's not one of your biggest power cards in the matchup.
That makes sense. You're very ice heavy. You both can do it to each other, or very blue heavy. It makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sometimes, like you said, you're alluding to. Sometimes scouting your opponents is really important in tournaments, and just knowing who you're playing. Right? If you can have a friend, a teammate, if you are done with your game early, you can walk around the tables near where you are. You know you're going to play one of them, and try and see what they're doing. Right? It helps. Trust me.
Yeah.
Let's cover one more major hero. And that would be probably Fai, I would say, is the other most represented hero right now. So when you're going into Fai, what's your game plan? And, what are the key cards in that matchup?
Sure. So you're going to play pretty much all your reds. They're all pretty good. I sometimes give the defense reactions a little bit of a side eye in the aggro
Hmm.
because they don't, all they do is, I know this might sound stupid, but all they do is stop damage. And like, yeah, that's what they're there for. The defense reaction
Yeah.
in card, I don't know. It's one of those, sync below is fine, but all it does is block. And in a Fai, you want to have a lot of answers because this is a game where like a lot of your blue cards do something. Channel the Bleak Expanse is a card I play here. Blizzard is like better here than it is, or it's better here than Hypothermia, like we talked about before. The
Hmm.
sword is like your one. Well, so you have two like essential hypo targets: is the sword and Blaze Headlong. And if they pop Snappies, if they're playing Snapdragons, but they're going to be playing Tide Flippers, so like you could
Yeah.
have it to stop them on a Mask of the Pouncing Lynx turn. But like if they've already like gone off on a Pouncing Lynx turn and they're breaking their like Null Rune to give their Lava Burst go again, like you've probably taken like 15 to 20 damage by that point. So that's not great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so you said
The
Blizzard and Hypo or Hypo's less effective. Blizzard's one of your key cards there, right? So would you say that you're winning this matchup through like damage? Or are you winning this matchup
yeah.
through like taxation?
Mm, it's funny. So Fai pays through taxes really well. And like if you listen to Michael Hamilton's breakdown of Iyslander, he has a really good point that Fai is the aggro deck that hides their power of their turn like the best. So it's hard to read them. So you don't know exactly what they're going to be throwing at you until like, oh, here it is. Like you weren't prepared for that. They can like kind of sneak something out. And you're like, okay, well, I wouldn't have known where Briar's got those channel now heroic turns. It's like, okay, this is pretty heads up what's going to happen here. So you have to keep tempo with them. You're trying to keep equal life. So you have to do a lot of damage, but taxation will do some stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but you're more looking to find the damage through like Waning Moon a lot of the
Okay.
time because they're not really pitching to stop more than one arcane damage. So it's this thing of like, just try to keep hitting them while they hit you and do enough taxation. Like taxation is actually, yes, it's important, but there's like a lot of spinning plates in the matchup. Like Amulet of Ice is great here because it's a zero cost. So you don't have to worry about like, oh, I have to like Insidious Chill costs you a whole card to play. So you're down to a 3-card hand and they're attacking you. So you're like, okay, I probably have to block with some of these. So it's very hard. But Amulet of Ice says like, it's 0, here's a Frostbite. I'm going to cash this in later and ruin your turn. So Amulet of Ice is higher priority than Chill, but if you can get one Chill out early, you're in a good spot.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, plays so differently than what I would have assumed. Every time you go into the details, I'm just like, okay, so I don't really understand Iyslander. So, any other key cards in the matchup that you would say like really carry you through, the unrelenting damage that Fai offers?
Yeah, I mean, like Scar for Scar into anything in this matchup is like fantastic. So you Scar for Scar into an Aether Ice Vein, great. They're not going to block anything. And if they did, also great.
Yeah.
Like they can block one off the Ice Vein. So like, okay, I mean, they should only have Arcane Barrier 1. They could bring 3, but they shouldn't.
Yeah.
Um, the let's see, Brain Freeze is really great. I mean, this is one of those matchups that does something. It's not just a block 3. Channel Lake Frigid, fantastic. I don't play
Oh yeah.
Frost Hex or Ice Eternal in the matchup because I'm never trying to do that to a Fai. It's too slow.
Yeah, it takes way too long, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna die before
Oh,
that combo.
oh yeah. Cold Snap's really good, but like they're not always going to have an arsenal. But when they do, Fai is one of those decks where like sometimes what the arsenal is. Like if they arsenal a Phoenix Flame, it's like great. You're not going to play that first. I'm going to freeze it with a Frost Hex and get some extra value, or not Frost Hex, Cold Snap.
Yeah.
Winter's Bite, like this is another deck where it's like this is pretty good. If you ever have an opportunity to block them in a situation where they could Pouncing Lynx,
Okay.
really think about the sequencing of it. Pouncing Lynx is what they should play into you. So it's one of those things where the first attack you shouldn't block. because they're likely not going to pop it right off the first attack. If they do, okay, well, it's very heads up what this turn's going to look like. Now you're going to try your best to make it suck for them, and they don't get to play through it.
Yep.
That's where something like a Brain Freeze or an Amulet of Ice that you can trigger off of like a blue Ice Vein or a Brain Freeze really helps. But like they're going to want to pop that on like a second or third chain link usually, so that they can go like, okay, coast is clear, and like so you want to look at things and go, okay, Pouncing Lynx needs to hit on an attack action. They're coming in with this Phoenix Flame. Can I realistically block it? Yes. Well, okay, I'll block it, and like you don't get your power turn. But it's like, don't like throw away your whole hand trying to stop Pouncing Lynx. It'll happen eventually.
Yeah.
Just try to make it worse for them. Try to make it where it's awkward. Like try to read how they're playing. It's a hard matchup, honestly. Fai is like probably the best aggro deck into Iyslander.
Yeah.
Michael Hamilton was the Iron Rock Gauntlet. I didn't bring that in, and they even said like, you don't have it. It's fine. It just stops a lot of their 4-power attacks. They come in with a Snatch for mounting anger. Yeah.
Yeah, Snatch. Yeah, don't let him get the free value on the Snatch. Like one of the things you said about his Fai's Arsenal, I weirdly find that you kind of Fai's one of the most readable Arsenal decks in the game. Weirdly, where half the time they're showing you that it's a Phoenix Flame, and then if Fai ever does something very weird on their turn, like not play every one of their cards, or like really do something strange, what they're putting in their arsenal is either it's a card that they couldn't figure out how to fire, so like a Lava Burst, or it's an Art of War, right? Or it's a card that doesn't have Go Again after a card that doesn't have Go Again, right? So it's like you can kind of deduce basically most of the time what is in Fai's arsenal. And playing into that is a huge way that I have success into it. And like you said, playing around links, right? Don't do your best to shut off links on the turns that it matters, and then but don't ruin your game plan by always shutting it off. Yeah. So a lot of really good points there. Is there any other hero you're really interested in covering, or are those kind of like the big three meta, or you want to get into Dash maybe?
Yeah, we could do Dash really fast.
I think Dash is the last kind of like alpha of the meta right now, probably.
Right. For Dash, I don't play the defense reactions.
Okay.
Like in Fai, there's an argument. In Dash, it's like, like what does she have on hit, right? Like,
yeah,
she has Combustible Courier, which is not great. Sure, that's a bad one, but like it's always going to come in for 6 on the turns. Well, it's not always going to come in for 6, but it should.
Yeah.
They want it to come in for 6, so they're going to pop like their Gauntlet, or they're going to go for like it's got the Tekla Pounder out. So like you're going to have a hard time blocking it anyways. With Dash, I would say they automatically play Arcane Barrier 3, which with both Rhinar and Dash is something that's like good for both of those decks, and a little tougher for Iyslander is like, oh, okay, you just for like you're not really losing much value playing Arcane Barrier 3, which is rough. Dash can play a decent amount of blues. Her game plan doesn't mind playing a lot of blues because you can start doing pistol stuff if you want to, or they could just go aggro and like I can't fatigue you. I have a lot of block twos, and they just pump out too much value to block out anyways. Hypothermia is one of the best hypothermia matchups, right? Because like one of my favorite things to do is if a Dash is going Teklo Pounders early, like if they start with one and they find the other early, if you find like hypothermia or any way to stop them, like a channel like Frigid, and they only get to go for 1 attack and take down 2 counters, okay, they came in for 0 to 60 pitching, it's coming in for 4, for 8, or a Zipper Hit coming in for 9, or a Throttle coming in for 10. Well, if I stop you with a hypothermia and it's just 10 damage, it's like that's just like kind of a bad turn, right? Like I don't care how many cards are out. Like if you just said, oh, what did you do on your turn? I did 10 damage and I lost 2 counters off the best cards in my deck. It's like that's kind of a win for me.
Yep.
So like prioritize, like the way I see it is if they've got Pounders and they find them early, just wait the Pounders out. Just play around making their turns worse, blocking the damage that matters. Once the Pounders are gone, now they're just a normal deck. Yeah, they've got a lot of Go Again, but like you have a lot of tools to deal with it. They have good blues. They can pitch through damage. You just have to play smart. Try to avoid Pulse Wave Harpoon exists. Sometimes they're gonna get you, and sometimes they just won't. Like we're one of those decks where it's like a little harder to get to like 4. They're never really gonna Pulse Wave for 4 unless you didn't have an answer. But as long as you have like some kind of answer, they'll probably Pulse Wave for 3 at maximum. That kind of stinks, but whatever. Something that's nice about Pulse Wave, but not. I mean, like you don't want to have no blocks in hand to take a bunch of damage, but like you can reveal no blocks, right? So if they're like, oh, Pulse Wave for 2, and you have like 2 Amulet of Ices, you're like, check it, I'm not blocking.
That's Pulse Wave is such another one of those dirty cards, right? Like it's uninteractable, right? They're already boosting every turn. There's nothing you can really do about it, and then they just get to take one of your cards, which is annoying. But like you said, you could play around it a little bit with like non-blocks, or if you have some D-reacts in your hand. You said you don't run them, but you can play around it a little bit. And then I think Rhinar has the same strategy too, where it's like if they have 2 pounders on the table, survive. If you can survive through the pounders, they become a much more fair deck. And then, disrupt where you can, right? Like block the entire thing, throw an erase face at them, turn off their hero ability, make them block. You're doing ice cards or Channel Lake Frigids, right?
Right.
Just try and like shut down their pounders to make them as useless as possible for as long as you can until they're gone, because they have 3 turns, right? They can only use them for 3 turns.
Right. Once they're gone, like they lose a ton of value.
Yeah.
I keep the Frost Hexes and the Ice Eternals in this matchup because Dash is, like we were talking about earlier, it's one of those decks you have to read how they're playing.
Yep.
If they're playing cagey and they're blocking everything, start setting up your Frost Hexes. They are not playing to like attack you. They're not playing for like a short game. They want to take you to like fatigue. So set up your Frost Hexes, set up your Insidious Chills. Just be careful not to like take too much damage, because they can switch to it. They can read you. That's the interesting thing about the Dash matchup, is like both of you kind of have agency here.
Yep.
You play your attacks. Scar for Scar is in this one. You go Scar for Scar into anything else, it's solid. The one thing that's rough is like with AB3, if you go like Aether Ice Vein, like they can just go block 3, pay 2, and like, okay, they've got 2 cards in hand. You can hit them for something on their turn, but like Thomas was doing some great things of like, I'm just going to pass here. And it's like, he's not doing anything, but he is kind of getting rid of my arcane spells. And I only have, 6 Aether Ice Veins that do more than 3. I have 2 Emeritus Scoldings. So at a certain point, I run out of damage that matters.
Yep.
And that's smart. If I were a Dash, I would be trying to like, it's not just fatigue. It's fatigue of the power cards, because like I could have 20 cards in deck, but if they're all like Amulet of Ice, Cold Snap, Frosting, it's like they don't do anything.
It's really interesting. Both are really flexible. Dash can change their game plan in the middle of the game. They can really catch you off guard sometimes, where if they're running like multiple items combos, 2 in the same deck. I've seen 2 Tekla Pounders and then a full item by the end of the game, and I was just like, okay, this is not what I planned for, it seems like a hard matchup, but it's a skill expression, right? And I think a lot of Icelanders matchups are skill expressions.
That's the thing about it, is it really just does feel like, do you feel comfortable in your plays? Are you willing to like sit down, get to know the deck and know how it feels into like other people? And it's just about understanding like how you block. It really matters how you block the damage. You can't just block any damage. You have to really consider, what am I losing by blocking this? Not just like, what am I gaining by blocking it? What am I losing? Right? Because like your life total is a time clock, and like, you don't want to be low, but intrinsically Iyslander will be low. So be okay with taking damage. In the Dash matchup, the damage is mostly vanilla. Okay, I don't want to take like 8 damage on this turn, but the alternative is I take no damage and then I do nothing back. It's like,
right,
the Dash player is winning.
It makes sense. I mean, weirdly plays a lot like Rhinar in these matchups. It's weird. I've been leaning towards Iyslander a lot recently, just because it seems like a very effective Rhinar. Big attacks, good game plan, and then you executed it
Check it
amazingly,
out.
man.
Thank you.
So with that, thank you so much for coming on today. I have learned so much about Iyslander. It's blown my mind, some of the things you've expressed to me already. You know, you won. We're gonna see you at Pro Tour. It's gonna be amazing. I'm so excited.
Thank you. I'm really excited to like have gotten to play that. Like like I've always wanted to get one of these down, so it felt really good to show up to a field full of like super strong players and actually get there. I just kind of still don't believe that it happened.
Man, yeah, I'm happy for you, man. You've done so well, especially Fab Team Cup undefeated, man. I'm excited to see you at Pro Tour because I think you're gonna be on doing big things, right? And I'll see you next weekend at the next two Proquests. Hopefully this time I'll take you down in the finals. But if I don't, I know
Yeah.
I'll see you somewhere in top 8. So, all right. Well,
I hope you get your PTI though. Like I want to see you at Pro Tour.
hell yeah. I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to waste my big one. I want to go to Worlds. So, all right, man. Well, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. It was wonderful playing against you. I'll see you next weekend.
Same.
Have a great day, man.